Hey, welcome back, all of you. There is no class today without generative AI, right? Because everybody is talking about Gen AI, the world, the new world of work. Okay, now architecting a Gen AI project is always really pretty complex. So in today's session, we try to connect the dots together in terms of trying to tell that suppose you are in charge of looking at building and reviewing a generative AI project for the design. What are some step by step you will be able to go hands on to really build this particular concept? So that's what we'll look at it today. Before we get started, uh, I have to introduce you that there is a lens. By this time, you must all be knowing that there are four tenets of well-architected framework. We have the six pillars, we have different lenses, we have the guidance, and there is a tool. We looked at most of them in the previous lessons. Today, we want to take like a case study about a project which has come to you. I think most of the projects today are being at least mapped to a generative AI, even though they're not real. But ultimately, what we are trying to understand is how do I use and review a generative AI? So we have something called generative AI lenses, which is the extension of the well-architected framework on building secure, reliable, and cost-optimized, responsible generative AI applications. So if you're an architect or a developer or a data or an ML engineer using Gen AI, you might be using products like Amazon Bedrock, SageMaker, you might be using Kendra, OpenSearch, a Glue or a Redshift for your basically for the data warehouse as well as for your ETL used vector database and LLM hosting. You might also be doing generally a custom LLM hosting for you to consume these services. So the Gen AI lenses, which has been recently put by AWS, has got very interesting elements, and we will try to do a live demo on this. Okay, the lens will guide architecture on the foundations and data readiness. For example, you can just check with the lenses about your data governance, data quality, secure data access, feature store, embedding. You can really review it for the model strategy, how good it is. The RAG architecture, retrieval augmented generation for chunking strategies, is the right thing done on the embedding creations, the workflow design for the applications, responsible AI, security, operation excellence, and cost. So it means it's a really quite foolproof. Imagine you have to use side by side the machine learning and Gen AI. That's why in the ML lenses, they'll be mentioning like how is it different from generative AIs for you to get a feel, because all this comes under the same domain of AI. Why should you use the Gen AI lenses? Because it will help the teams avoid some inference cost, which I've really gone through and understood. Ungoverned access to sensitive data. Okay, poorly chosen models. There are a lot of ways by which why you want to really do that. So now let's jump and do this as an exercise for all of us, okay, and see how it works. So before we there, first thing important is for us to go to the base page. Let me do it in a structured way so that all of you can just practice this. The way I would have approached you if I was a beginner is to just go and type here AWS well architected framework. Okay, and I assume by this time all of you are with me in terms of telling that the first six pillars will anyway be applied to any project. Okay, that's for given. But here I'm searching for the lenses, which is this, which is generative AI lens. So the step here is Gen AI lenses. You can download this PDF as usual, which is around 261 pages. This is a great way to learn Gen AI. Okay, apart from you trying to go and understand what is Bedrock, etc., you can go through these lenses in detail. Okay, then the other way to really think about this is to really look at the perspective, basically how you will look at this from a document called a JSON document. So if you really read this documentation about Gen AI, you will find that this has got a huge documentation here. You have the six pillars, which are basically available for the generative AI. And we'll keep the theory for yourself to read. We will look for a place where it's written that download and import the GenAI lenses. So what you have to do is just go here, click this. You will reach a place where you have the lenses which have been given by AWS under the sample well architected custom lens. Whatever I'm showing you, you can do it for any of the custom lenses. Just go here and download the raw file. Okay. The raw file is available here for you. Once you have the raw file, you have to just go to the dashboard. Again, for people who are just seeing this standalone, how do I reach here? Go to management governance. You can go into the well architected tool. Once you're into the well architected tool, you have to go to the custom lens. Because you download a JSON file, you have logically have to bring that JSON file into the well architected tool. For that, what you'll do is to create and choose a file. Now here in this case, you have this JSON file here. Open this JSON file and then you come down and tell submit. So once you submit it, what happens is the JSON file, the GenAI lenses gets added into your window. So then now you, as usual, go back to workloads. Okay, you define a workload. This time I tell that this is the Gen AI chatbot, which I want to review, version 2. And you can type whatever you want. We will not waste time here. Okay, Gen AI review of workload. I keep this names as it is to save time, pre-production. Okay, the regions you can select. Now that you know that you got the flow. Okay, you can skip all these things. You don't have to activate any of these things and just click next. Now, when you click next here, apart from the well-architected framework, you will also find that there are a lot of these lenses which are available. So before we go there to the lenses, I have not submitted the lenses. That's the reason maybe it's not showing here. I'll go back to the well-architected custom lens, open this custom lens, and I'll tell publish lenses. That's a step which is required. You tell the version of this which I'm publishing is this, so that it appears for me while I go into the workload. Now I have published the workload lens, which is good that uh, it gave me that error that you learned one more new things. I put back again the GenAI chatbot, the version to check. Okay, and then I put my name here, pre-production. Okay, select a region, which is basically your US East. Come down here and click next. So when you click next here, you will see that the custom lens, generative AI lens is here active, and you find that the well-architected framework and then define workload. That's how you can add anything and then you can start reviewing it. When you go to generative AI lenses, you suddenly see that such a valuable set of information. You have 11, 6, 12, 17, 21, 26, 29 additional questions. You have 58 questions which is coming through a general design principles of your well-architected framework. You have so many more questions to ask. For example, if I tell security, I may not know how to really secure my Gen AI questions, so I can come and ask my customers, how do you manage generative AI endpoints? And you'll see a lot of these questions. On the right hand side, you'll see some resources to actually build these things also, right? So that is how you really can, on a day of life of a Gen AI project, you just have to know generally. You might want to add a machine learning lenses in case there is a category where you're mixing it up too. Okay, and this is how you can build the project. So custom lenses are very important. Based on the project, you might be really looking at building them, and then you can ask the questions. Now, there was one important, certain frequently asked question which I wanted to cover, because this is not very interactive sessions. Even though you can ask these questions at the end of the course, which I will try to answer, you don't have to really go through all these questions for a project. Please understand, 58 plus 29, maybe 70, 80 questions, and that each question has got a lot of things to ask. You might be wondering, do a customer require everything for the project? From an architect perspective, you should at least validate. From a customer perspective, certain things may not be required. Certain things they're already doing well, or sometimes it's out of scope, it's not of business priorities. Just document everything as part of your workload, which would be very useful for you for the future. That is one very frequently asked question about whenever you're using Gen AI. So where does a product comes? So whenever you're telling, for example, operation excellence, and let's look at something like reliability. Okay, And if you want to, let's pick something which I wanted to can drive a question which is more important. Now, if you want to collect and monitor, this is about verifying constant model output. Now, what you will see is for this particular question, it will take me to a place where it talks about how do I really do the implementation using Bedrock model invocation logging. So there are multiple ways to learn the subject. One is you jump into the world of AI here in AWS, and then go to machine learning and pick up the SageMaker AI for the SageMaker ML stuff, and then pick up the Bedrock and relevant tools which are available. Practice it. The other way to work backwards. Basically, if you really look at any projects in Gen AI, requires this thinking. So if you're able to really relate to these aspect and then look at back into the lenses, it will be very, very useful. And in the Gen AI lenses, I found this best practice document extremely useful, which is well mapped. Look at each of this, each of the elements of the best practice. How is it mapped within the context of the document is also very, very useful. Okay. So this is something which I wanted to just leave you today as an example. And imagine Gen AI lenses also covers the data architecture, because not that all the foundation models come with very rich data, but it's also important for you to understand how useful that data for customization, creating custom models. How do you do it? How do you relate this data? So those information is also part of the Gen AI lenses. And I just love this design principles, because this was far pending for all of us to know, because every time you're designing something on Gen AI workload, pretty much confusion about how do I do, for example, controlled autonomy, right? Basically, how do I build those guardrails and boundaries? Because what is very easy in Gen AI is to identify a foundation model, building your prompt strategy, building your agentic AI framework, looking at any open source stuff, etc., and then looking at whether an SLM is a good choice or you want to really plan for the scale, etc. But these things like control autonomy, where you have to have clear control over safety. Okay, how do you create observability? How to monitor these things very well? Okay, resources, distributed resilience. So very, very important aspects of the design principles which have been given here. Okay, and as I keep telling you, nothing is foolproof. And one of the very important areas is also for the agentic AI. Every time today you're within your context of AWS or any of the cloud providers, you will find agentic AI. It will be the way by which the prompts are just moving into a more life full agentic AI, right? So with more of an autonomous way of activity. And you'll see how you can understand this agentic AI through this document. And there's some good scenarios given to you. Now, this is the most important piece which I would recommend for all of you to read. If you're in Gen AI, you might be creating a multi-tenant Gen AI platform scenario. In that case, what are the various service persona and components you could use? If you're using an autonomous call center, what are the same things? So these are very good ways. By just one document which you download, you can get some introduction, you can get some definitions about various terminologies, you can get some design principle, responsible AI, okay, data architecture, various scenarios, and then each and every pillar, how do you design it, some best practices mapping. And this is extremely wonderful. And now you know how to take that to the tool. You can go back to your customer, keep recording, like, no, how does a customer do? You don't know how to do it, click the info. It will tell you how to do. If you click more info, it will tell you how exactly to implement. That's pretty wonderful. Okay, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next lesson.